Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Pate, and I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Washington Center for the Book, an affiliate of the Library of Congress Center for the Book, and a partnership between the Washington State Library and the Seattle Public Library. The Washington Center for the Book promotes literacy and a love of books, reading, and libraries. We celebrate Washington's robust literary heritage and shine a spotlight on the contribution of reading and libraries in strengthening communities and in fostering civic engagement. One of our projects is the Washington State Book Awards, and we are thrilled to present the second in a series of online events with our 2021 Washington State Book Award winners with you here tonight. Our next event will be December 15th at 6 p.m. with Jennifer Longo, author of What I Carry, who will be interviewed by journalist and author Claudia Rao. And that is next week on the 15th, and I'll put a link to that event and all of our future events in the chat after this intro. We'd also like to thank our event partner for tonight and for this entire series, the Washington Library Association. I'd like to welcome Brianna Hoffman, WLA Executive Director, to say a few words.
Thank you, Sarah. Since 1931, the Washington Library Association has been a leader in the Washington community, providing advocacy, professional development, and leadership opportunities to our members, while also promoting intellectual freedom and innovation. We are so excited to be partnering with our friends, the Washington Center of the Book, for these series of events. On behalf of WLA, thank you all for joining us tonight. And now back to Sarah to kick off tonight's program.
Thank you, Brianna. So it is now my pleasure to introduce Anna Balint, who is a London-born, Seattle-based poet, writer, editor, and cultural activist of East European descent. Her editorial work for Raven Chronicles Press includes co-editing Take a Stand, Art Against Hate, winner of the 2021 Washington State Book Award for Poetry, and Words from the Cafe. Her short fiction collection, Horse Thief, was a finalist for the Pacific Northwest Book Award. A longtime teacher of creative writing, Anna currently teaches adults in recovery from trauma, addiction, mental illness, and homelessness at Seattle's Recovery Cafe, where she founded Safe Place Writing Circle. Anna, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here. We've had a lot of different readings around this anthology. But this one is it's special because of the recognition that we have now, which is for all the writers and artists who are represented in this anthology. So it's really exciting to be here tonight in this context and have such a wonderful group of Washington State poets to read to us tonight and give us a glimpse of what the anthology has to offer. I just wanted to say a couple of things about goals that we had for this anthology before I introduced the first reader, because there were a number of things that were very, very important to us going into this project. And one was that it be clearly rooted in US history, in particular in the history of colonialism, which manifested itself as the enslavement of African people, the theft of land, and genocide of Native American people. And the reason we felt this is so important is because if we want to find the origins of hate in this country, that's where we'll find them. And so the anthology is kind of rooted in that and then traces itself in the first section, Legacy, through different chapters of US history as they manifest in people's stories and experience. And so we're going to get a glimpse of that in tonight's reading, which will have sort of two sections, and one will be life in the USA, and the other part, though they're very much connected, but still they have a specific focus too. The other part is life on the southern border. So I'd like to introduce our first reader for tonight, who's Carletta Carrington Wilson. And we're going to start with a poem that actually reaches across time into history and speaks to someone whose ancestry was rooted in slavery and has a conversation between the past and the present. So please welcome Carletta.
Thank you, Anna. Letter to a laundress. You taught her well. They say she had the touch, took wrinkled, soiled shirts, made them like new, especially collars and cuffs. Her hands mirror yours, lifting piece by piece apart. Ink, sweat, blood, mud, grass, vomit. What to do with dirty looks, foul language, rank stench, shadowy stains that remain after all that scrubbing, deftly rubbing, and no way out. Ringer, iron holder, washwoman, leaning in line with lines. Untenable lines whose far-reaching consequences found you standing in the path of a past on its way to the future. My line of inquiry, like the lines of this letter, crosses lines never meant to be crossed, only crossed out, bleached, faded away, in the way blood's unlettered lines meet their deadlines. Drawn into silence, the line of her lips. Like you, she was made of all work, made to serve, made of service, made to serve the soiled. Washing stick, line peg, lye soap, bluing, sort the sordid, haul that heaviness, never done, the work of daughters who keep company with cloth. Dryness fitted to fingers that soak, boil, scrub, rub, pour, rinse, wring, tightly wring. Wrung out dampness, riveted to iron, fold over, keep pressing on. Hoist baskets, tote tubs, lug those loads. Every bundle extends a line awaiting its hangings. Lines stretch their length across the yard, beyond which lie the waters, well water, lake water, spring water, creek water, in rain, falling rain, a sorrowing soaks riversides in creek bed grief. Who there, drenched by despair? Oh, mother, mothers of blue waters, who hung from those knotted lines.
Thank you, Carletta. Whoa, that is one powerful poem. One of the other things that we really wanted this anthology to contain is just an incredible diversity of voice and image coming from just a real cross-section of people in US society and also from other parts of the world. And that included geography and from people of all walks of life, age, ethnicity, race, gender, you name it. And we're going to see that reflected in tonight's reading too. Another thing that we have in the anthology I wanted to share a little bit of is that between the different sections, there are epigraphs, quotes from different writers and public figures that somehow kind of shine a light on a particular aspect of what the anthology is addressing. And I'm going to share a couple of those right now before the next reader. This is something from Lucille Clifton. She says, every pair of eyes facing you has probably experienced something you could not endure. And I think the next poem, which is going to be read by Rob Jacques, is a reflection of that quote. Please welcome Rob Jacques.
Matthew Shepard, I am not a martyr. I did not die for a cause. My problems were my problems, not yours. All I ever wanted was a little bit of pleasure. So save your applause for those who died deliberately and for good measure bravely in the name of God, country, or human pride. Given a choice, I would rather have lived. I loved music, good company, and cute guys. I was not ashamed of what I was, nor did I hesitate to make the first move, to smile, to start light conversation, or touch a thigh that seemed slightly willing to be touched. No meant no, and I'd move away. Yes meant for a while, somewhere secluded, there'd be pleasuring, a little wrestling, bodily fluids exchanged between friends, perhaps, just perhaps, a bit of happiness and longer contact on which life depends. In short, I wanted what you want. Don't kid yourself. You could have hung as easily and as much in pain as I on that rural road. Someone cute pretends to like you, offers comfort, a pause from the routine mode of living by way of a few moments of bliss. Well, I was unlucky, as you might have been. I may have lost my life for a promised kiss, but I was as normal and human as you are. That alone gives my murder a tragic ring. Remember this when you search for love. Gay and straight amount to the same thing.
Thank you, Rob. Another expression of hate in this country from as long as this country's been around pretty much has been anti-Semitism. And of course, today we see in equal measure anti-Islam. Our next poet is Risa Denenberg, and her poem addresses some of both the history and the present of anti-Semitism. And in it, she touches on historical events. And also at the very end of her poem, she mentions both the yellow star and the pink star. And the pink star was the star, or a triangle sometimes, that was given by the Nazis to designate someone who was homosexual. So please welcome Risa Denenberg. Are you there, Risa?
I'm here. There, oh, I had to say something to get on the screen, sorry. Yellow star. In my case, the yellow star will be made of two perfect pink triangles, cut from cheap dry goods at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, where the women sew stars on at the ready, hunched over their singers, and not wasting time on stairs, work right up to closing time, then jump. They didn't want to die so young, and neither did the gay boys who died in droves at the close of the last century. I would be one who would beg you to shoot me, who would know that borders lie, that I could not endure the march through the woods in the snow to the trains at the end. We who say never forget also know that it could happen again to us. And we do not know more now than we did then how to make it stop. The stitching never ends. For practice, I have sutured my arm to my sleeve with triangles made from pages torn from the book of Job.
Thank you, Risa. Before I introduce our next poet, I just wanted to share another epigraph, which I think is very important to sort of keep in mind when we hear these testimonies, which are painful. And this is from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who said, "To oppression, we respond with life." And I think we need to keep that in our minds. Also, Joy Harjo, who said, "All acts of kindness are lights in the war for justice." Alongside what was occurring in Germany and parts across Europe, Poland, with the Nazis and the camps and the extermination, not only of Jews, but of Roma people and other groups that were considered not worthy of life. Here in this country, we have a chapter of history which too often is sort of like pushed to the side as if, well, you know, no big deal, or that was then, this is now. I'm talking about the internment of Japanese people who were citizens in this country and have made their lives here. And the next poem by Lawrence Matsuda, is going to address personal history in his family having to do with the Japanese internment. Let's welcome Lawrence Matsuda.
Thank you. Am I on?
You're on.
The noble thing. Dad never talked about Minidoka. That was a noble thing. Before World War II, there was Garfield High School for him, ice skating on Green Lake, dances at Lake Wilderness Lodge, later his ownership of Elk Grocery on Seneca Street. He and my mother were married in 1941, 10 months later to be removed, forced into the Minidoka concentration camp. Mom was 5 months pregnant in August with my older brother, Alan. With blackout curtains drawn, the train left Puyallup and climbed the Cascade Mountains until the land flattened and the inescapable sun transformed the cars into a moving sauna. People gasped small, panicked breaths from the superheated air. Shikataganai, it can't be helped. The train stopped by the side of an unmarked road in the Idaho desert, released its passengers miles from any station. Rumors spread they would be shot or marched to death, their bodies stacked, then carted away to some awaiting ditch. Nowhere to run, they walk in their best shoes in the gritty sand as on the face of the moon. The heat caused some to faint as they carried all that they could. 3 years later, Dad returned to Seattle after the war, developed a bleeding ulcer, lost his janitor job at Earl Hotel. Depression took Mom away like invisible armed guards. She was a stranger, a stick-like figure with arms and legs poking out of a white smock, pacing the sidewalk next to the Western State Hospital turnaround. Dad never talked about it, none of it. I never heard him say the word Minidoka. Gaman, endure the unbearable with dignity. Shikataganai, my best friend's mother chose pills for suicide. After school, Randy, my neighbor, opened the garage door and found his father in his best suit, hanged by the neck. Shikataganai, the same path other Seattle Japanese chose. Numbers unknown. Shikataganai. We, however, never talked about it. That was a noble thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. We've got some powerful stories here, and we've got more coming up. The next poem is a little different in that another element that's in this anthology that we were really, was very, very important for us that it be there, is one that awakens hope and captures the spirit of resistance, which is the flip side of all this oppression and the things that people are having to deal with, is it makes folks angry. It inflamed struggle. There's no better example of that than the murder of George Floyd last year and what followed. But things don't always express themselves in those kind of mass uprisings and huge events. Sometimes things express themselves in a ripple, in changes of consciousness, in the way that we begin to see the world or interact with it. And both the next poems coming up sort of reflect part of that. In Priscilla Long, who's going to read next, I'm really taken with how something as simple as talking about color can't contain itself just sort of neatly within sort of beautiful elements of nature, that the circumstances of our world takes that color into a whole other direction. So please welcome Priscilla Long. I've got to say your name, Priscilla.
Thank you. Am I here? Yeah. Things that are red. October, its flame-colored filbert foliage foregoing green. Red manure worms eating and mating in the worm box. Fuchsia petals tantalizing hummingbirds, tempting bees. The sun red and low in the west, earth ocean tinted, silver gray, rose. Trayvon Martin's blood was red, his hoodie black. He was on the phone walking home, his skin black. In Sanford, he was chased down, shot down. He was 17. His killer, America, calls Black Americans slime. His killer, America's shame, America's crime.
Thank you, Priscilla. Our next reader is Susan Rich, and Susan's poem also, for me, has the same kind of glimmers of hope and resistance within it, different than Priscilla's, but another manifestation of it, that kind of coming awake to things, which is just beautiful. So please welcome Susan Rich.
For the first time, I am afraid of my country, I say. And he says, yes, he who has not taken his safety for granted does not shame me for only understanding this now. We navigate the broken interstate, eyes focused on our near future, and the shape of the conversation continues on in slow-drawn twists and turns, past green exit signs and a floating bridge that disappears across the lake behind the cut. Two complete strangers, portrayed in black and white, driving our nation's highways in the rush hour of late spring.
Thank you, Susan. Next, we're going to have a video. It's a video from Thomas Hubbard, who is also one of the editors of this anthology. And something about this poem that is very, very special to me is the way that it invites us to really see people who often are unseen. they're the people that we pass by in the street. And maybe there's a lot of tutting or singling them out as criminals. A lot of the stuff that's been going on in Seattle recently with camps of tents that are set up, people who are suffering from homelessness, and here they are in the parks because there's nowhere else for them to be. And rather than seeing the people who are actually there and their plight, it's treating them as a criminal element. So Thomas's poem is very beautiful to me in that he invites us to see someone's humanity. And it makes me think of this quote that's in the anthology by Audre Lorde. She says, "It is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences." And that celebration has got to embrace every form of oppression, every difference that there is between us. Just a word of caution, the volume on this video may be rather soft. If it is and you're having difficulty hearing it, try turning the video up, the volume up on your individual computers. Okay, thanks. And here is Thomas Hubbard.
Hi, I'm Thomas Hubbard, and it's my honor and my privilege to be included in this anthology from Raven Chronicles Press, Take a Stand, Art Against Hate. Today I'm going to read the piece of mine that's included in the book. It's titled Lower Queen Anne. On Queen Anne Avenue, in a neighborhood called Lower Queen Anne, at the foot of the hill sits a coffee house with some outside tables, a place for long Sunday mornings, people watching. It was on such a day that this scene unfolded. So this fella sits right now, Sunday morning, at one of the outside tables, smoking a cigarette, drinking a paper cup of coffee from a different stand nearby. His orange, yellow, and white striped trousers argue with the electric lime green rain jacket he wears over a dark blue hooded sweatshirt. Cheap running shoes and whiskers complete his outfit. He appears to be well into his 50s. Lines on this man's face tell of new starts that didn't work. Tell of damp-skinned mornings beside women he needed to escape. Of realization that the love of his life would not be coming back, ever. The lines on his face tell of leaving home. No, not some cheap place where he might have been staying. Leaving the very idea, the very concept of home. Leaving it behind. And those lines on his face speak softly, so softly, of gathering determination to make it through another day. He looks from side to side, hands fidgeting at his crossed knees. One cheap running shoe on the concrete, while the other moves idly in the air, white cotton sock tops showing. He begins talking to nobody, or perhaps to all the world, and then suddenly he's gone. Walking carefully up Queen Anne Avenue, walking past apartment buildings far beyond his means, places he would never even be allowed into the lobby. He's gone, walking slowly up that hill, and all the lunches his mother may have packed for him, the meals he sat down to, the conversations, the close shaves he escaped, and those he didn't, ball games he played, scenes he saw, songs he sang, kites he flew, lovers he knew, dogs of his childhood New toys and lessons in school. Days he skipped and buddies he skipped with. The letters he wrote, cars he wore out or wrecked. Cold nights he wished for family while shivering alone. All gone along with him, stuffed inside the hood of that old blue sweatshirt, headed for whatever comfort the day might give him.
Thank you, Thomas. I hope everyone was able to hear that all right. If not, you can look it up in the anthology. And I did want to say, I meant to say at the beginning that I'm not introducing people with bios because the time frame of this program is short. However, everybody's bios are available in the chat and also on the Raven website. So yes, please check those out. Our next reader is Rhonda Broche. And Rhonda's poem, it's life in the US, but it's also a poem that's sort of universal. It deals with women. And it's a poem that speaks really for the women of the world, not just the women of the US. And I wanted to say that this poem is sort of, and it makes me think of, in this whole element of the hope that comes with actually standing up to oppression and to hatred. And there's a quote, some of you probably know of Brian Stevenson of the Equal Justice Initiative, who's I think one of the foremost fighters for justice in our country. He's an attorney, works with prisoners and bringing history, particularly the history of African Americans and history of slavery, bringing that out into the open. And he has a quote, hope is the enemy of injustice. Hope is what you get, what will get you to stand up when people tell you to sit down. And I think Rhonda's poem really captures that spirit. So let's have Rhonda Broche. Hi, Rhonda.
Hello, and thank you. My poem is A Woman Holds a Baby and a Machete. You wonder what the punchline is. If there is another way to punctuate, say, a woman holds a baby and a machete was nowhere to be found. Or maybe the baby was daycare, sleepy, songs swaddling her while outside. Let's say in a city far away, the woman wields the machete. She is fighting her way through a dictionary of neckties. She names her machete Me Too, and the baby coos as the stars magic themselves into being. Meanwhile, the neckties have no room for the growing thesaurus of women of any gender, but so far stop short of the machete. The woman wonders if she puts down the machete, picks up the baby, if she'd have to defend her choice. The baby sees the woman as nothing less than the goddess of her womb days. The machete, a natural extension of what she is meant to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. I needed that poem when for many years I was a single mom. I really could have done with that. Our next poet is Patrick Dixon, and his poem takes us in a very different direction. The anthology is also global in scope. It needs to be. And that includes both the question of like who the US allows in and doesn't allow in to this country, particularly when it comes to people seeking asylum and refugees not just from the southern border, but from across the world, and the impact of its wars in producing refugees and displacing peoples. The other thing is, what does the US do when it crosses borders in the other direction and goes out militarily? What is it up to that we don't even know about a lot of times? And that is what Patrick's poem addresses. We're going to zoom out across our borders and then come back. Are you there, Patrick?
I am. Men of a military age, the United States Army's designation for certain non-combatants in a war zone. The noise is unmistakable, like the way a helicopter announces its presence long before it's visible. Look up. The speck you see seems harmless enough. A light buzz in your brain signals, maybe you're wrong about that. Run, seek cover. All the destruction a tornado offers packed into a cylinder beneath a wing. The eye in the nose follows your steps, places a crosshair. Or another, flying so high, no one on the ground hears until the trigger's pulled and everything goes white. Walls, chairs, tables leap and fragment, mix with flesh and blood. Amazon doesn't deliver this way yet. The UPS truck idling on the street outside your house hasn't exploded, erasing your neighborhood in a cloud of smoke and thunder. But standing outside in the city heat, music thumping to the beat of bullets pumped from a casino window, the result is the same. Only the bodies fall intact, not blown apart into crimson spatter. FedEx arrives in an ambulance, leaves a door sticker. No replacements, ever. What's next? USPS carriers once gone postal, now wearing Kevlar, delivering assault rifles, ammunition. Meanwhile, another drone takes off from an airfield, heads toward Pakistan, looking for men of a military age.
Indeed, we must never forget that. I wanted to say too, in regard to this situation beyond our borders, that Afghanistan, the US presence in Afghanistan has for many, many years now put Afghani refugees in the sort of countries of the top 5 countries of the most refugees from around the world. And Afghanistan is one of those countries. And it has everything to do with the way that the US presence has destabilized society there. And now, of course, things are not any better now that the US is gone. I also wanted to just say that one of the delights globally in this that was included in this anthology was I personally was really excited to be able to include a poem by Danya Mikhail, who's an Iraqi poet, excuse me. And her poem, The War Works Hard, is a real testimony from someone from that part of the world of what that war meant for civilians. But now we're going to transition with the next piece, which is also a video. It's the beginning of the transition to the southern border. It doesn't take place in the southern border, it takes place here in the USA. But Catalina Cantu's poem tells a story that really sort of somehow captures the essence of this whole thing about the arbitrariness of borders, number one, and number two, how the indigenous peoples of the Americas, how they were not only inside our borders, but outside our borders in Mexico, in Canada, how they got carved up, moved around, displaced from their land, etc. And Catalina's poem does a wonderful job of capturing that in a very personal story of her experience. So let's welcome Catalina via video.
I'm Catalina Marie Cantu, and this is Back Home. Papa always referred to Texas as back home. His familia has loved and lived in the Rio Grande Valley at the southern tip of Texas since long before Texas became a state. The United States border came to mi familia. Generation after generation, they continue to live. Back home, we can get chorizo, tamales, and fresh tortillas just down the street, Papa said. Up north, everything is canned, not fresh. In San Francisco at the VA, Papa and Mama met as clerks with adjacent desks. After their Catalina Island honeymoon, they were laid off. Papa became a security guard. Mama was pregnant with me. Back home, Tio Gustavo owned a dry cleaning business, offered Papa a job. We moved in with Abuela, Papa's madre. My primos and I threw lit matches down tarantula holes in her dirt yard, raced radio flyer wagons down bumpy roads, and counted our mosquito bites. Our migration back home was a few years of heat hanging like laundry, mosquito bites tolling in the 90s, Espanol everywhere, and lots of familia adventures. Then we moved up north. North was postage stamp town of chalk people. Wherever my family walked, they stopped us. Hey you, where are you going? What are you? Papa, his wavy ebony hair slicked back, elegant, sharkskin suit, tie, and shined shoes, met his inquisitors with a stony gaze. We are Americans. Chalk people chortled and shook their pointed heads. Really? Seriously? Where are you people from? We escaped that time. What did I care if no one looked like me, had a last name that ended in a vowel, or ate Mexican food at home? Must be invisible, invisible to their world. Shy, skinny, a brown toothpick in a milk sea, bobbing to survive, the Moby Dicks. Thank you.
You're muted, Anna.
Well, I clicked it. I didn't. Sorry. Thank you, Catalina. And our next poet is Mary Ellen Talley, who's going to read a very short poem twice so that we can really hear it, which has the most beautiful border crossing that can sort of be awakened in the imagination. So let's hear Mary Ellen Talley's.
Thank you. Can you hear me? You see me? Okay. Migration. Raise the wall higher. Monarch butterflies cross the border every winter without work visas. Raise the wall higher. Monarch butterflies cross the border every winter without work visas. Thank you.
Beautiful. And so do a whole lot of other things cross borders. You think of all those birds that migrate this way and that way. It's just a lovely thing to think of how arbitrary borders are, and that one day in a different kind of world, we will not be divided by borders in the way that we are now. But now that division is a very real and a very ruthless thing. And the next two poems, well, actually the next 4 poems all the way through to the end, all have to do with experience related to the southern border. And the next 2 poems are both dealing with children and the experience of children. We have one poem, which is the experience of a child having a parent deported from this country and the separation occurring that way. And then we have a poem of a child with her father trying to cross the border and being separated at the border by death, which you remember that started to come into the news. I mean, how much it had been going on and how many cases there were other than the few we heard about, I don't know. But these two poems to me are like so powerful, because the thing about children is they're our future. And when we deny children their caretakers, their parents, and that closeness, that's a terrible thing to have any child go through. And I wanted to say just one quote before I introduce those two poets, which is the Native writer Linda Hogan. We have an epigraph of hers in the book. And she says, caretaking is the utmost spiritual and physical responsibility of our time. And I think that's very true. And I don't think she's saying that just in relation to parenting. There's all kinds of different forms of caretaking. But when it comes to human existence, the caretaking of a child and the relationship with the parents is definitely very much at the heart of things. Let's welcome Angelina Villalobos with her poem.
For the man who is half of me. I always knew my father did not belong. I did not need the television to blemish my mind and condition what my father should look like. My father did not come home with a shirt and tie and a briefcase. He came home smelling of the earth and the sweat of his manual labor and his cologne that I would remember always, even after he was long gone. He would speak to me in boisterous Spanish. Angelina, mi Angelita. I did not need a thick panel of glass to tell me that my father was untouchable. Even the law agreed he was meant for Mexico, not the United States. Either that or locked from view. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angelina. And now we're going to have a poem that sort of mirrors that in a very sad way from Jeb Myers.
Thank you, Anna. This is a poem called Lost Crossing for Hekeline Amai Rosemary Kaal Makin. The girl crosses from city to forest, hand in her father's. The girl crosses the rivers, riding her father's shoulders. She crosses the dark under stars her father says are our ancestors watching us. She crosses the valleys where her dreams land her, calling out for her father who's hidden off in the brush where he crouches to gather them edible roots. She crosses long stretches of hunger and thirst, and her father tells her it isn't much farther north. The water they find to drink is the water they find. They cross brown streams, narrow and cloudy rivers. She tires. Her father tugs her along by the wrist, as firm as he must, as gentle as he can be. She crosses back and forth between wake and sleep on her feet, crosses the last stretch of dust before her father draws her under the shadow of a tall barrier and lets her slump, lets her fall to her knees, and she drifts, crosses deep where her rising fever's wide blue river runs in a silver haze toward the sea. And she lets that river take her, before her father or anyone sees she's not there for the final heave, not there when the agents sees her father and her, not there in her limp limbs, nor behind her swimming eyes, won't ask for the fresh water her blood's long shrunken rivers still need, and she slips farther off from the sand of their perch on those banks of the promised land. She crosses into forever elsewhere, father squeezing the air for her hand. Thank you.
Whew. That poem always. Oh, thank you, Jed. The two last poems, both are full of hope and resistance. And I wanted, before Kathleen Stanek reads, she's our next reader, her poem goes with this particular image that's in the book. I don't know if you can see this. It's of a wrist rosary. And there's a janitor on the border that went along and collected all the different things that the people trying to cross were made to discard or had to discard in one way or another. And he collected wrist rosaries, and he collected toothbrushes, and he collected photographs. And then he actually photographed them and made the most beautiful art, photographic art with these objects that he found. And Kathleen's poem, it was kind of like magic. Here came Kathleen's poem, and here came Tom Kiefer's image. And so they're facing one another in the book, but it's just sort of exciting to have a poem that's addressing directly the story behind one of these images. So let's welcome Kathleen Stanek.
Thank you. Threat for Tom Kiefer. Somewhere in a detention center along the southern border, a janitor removes rosaries from the trash, photographs them so they will not be forgotten. Discarded, it was said, for the safety of the officers. Thank you.
Oops, I just muted myself. Thank you, Kathleen. Our last reader tonight is Maya Marino, who's going to read a poem by Anita Andreze called The Wall. Maya reads this poem beautifully, and Anita is ill and unable to read herself. So rather than miss the opportunity to have this poem, which probably is the most gorgeous celebration of resistance in the entire anthology, it's sort of a celebration of resistance from beginning to end, and gives us a whole new vision of that wall along the border. So Maya, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, take it away.
The Wall by Anita Andreze. Build a wall of saguaros, butterflies, and bones of those who perished in the desert. A wall of worn shoes, dry water bottles, poinsettias. Constructed of gilded or crazy house mirrors, so some can see their true faces. Build a wall of revolving doors or revolutionary abuelas. Make it as high as the sun, strong as tequila. Boulders of sugar skulls, adobe or ghosts. A Lego wall or bubble wrap. A wall of hands holding hands, hair braided from one woman to another, one country to another. A wall made of Berlin, a wall for tunneling, a beautiful wall of taco trucks, a wall of silent stars and migratory songs. This wall of solar panels and holy light, panels of compressed Cheetos, topped not by barbed wire, but sprouting avocado seeds, those Aztec testicles. A wall to keep us in and them out. It will have faces and heartbeats. Dreams will be terrorists. The wall will divide towns, homes, mountains, the sky that airplanes fly through with their potential illegals. Our wallets will be on life support to pay for it. Let it be built of guacamole so we can have a big lead block party. Mortar it with chipotle chocolate. Build it from coyote howls and wild horses drumming across the plains of Texas from the memories of hummingbird warriors and healers. Stack it thick as blood, which has mingled for centuries, la vida. Dig the foundation deep. Create a 2,000-mile altar lit with votive candles for those who have crossed over, defending freedom under spangled stars, and drape it with rebosos and sweetgrass. Make it from two-way windows. The wind will interrogate us. The rivers will judge us, for they know how to separate and divide to become whole. Pink Floyd will inaugurate it. Ex-Presidente Fox will give it the middle finger salute. Wile E. Coyote will run headlong into it and survive long after history forgets us. Bees will find sand-scoured holes and fill it with honey. Heroin will cover it in blood. But it will be a beautiful wall, a huge wall. Remember to put a rose-strewn doorway in Nogales where my grandmother crossed over, pistols on her hips. Make it a gallery of graffiti art, a refuge for tumbleweeds, a border of stories we already know by heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. And thank you, Anita Andreze, too. I mean, wow. That poem is such an inspiration. This is the end of our reading, and I'm just really delighted to be able to share these wonderful poets with you tonight. I'm going to hand it back to Sarah in just a minute to make a couple of closing remarks. But before I do, I wanted to end with two more quotes that are in the anthology. The first one is from Grace Paley, who was a feisty creature from day one. And she says, "Let us go forth with fear and courage and rage to save the world." And then alongside of that, and I think this image just knocks me over, it's so beautiful. This is from the Indian writer and feminist activist Arundhati Roy. She says, "Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." Thank you. And good night from me. And here's Sarah.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you for that extremely thoughtful moderation and for leading us through all of the readings this evening. Huge thank you to Anna, Phoebe, and Thomas for editing this amazing anthology. And of course, thank you so much for all of the poets who shared your work tonight, who shared it via this collection, but also shared it with us live here this evening. It's a really beautiful event. Thank you so much. This event will be recorded and available. We'll have it up on the Center for the Book website and Seattle Public Library's YouTube channel. When it's ready, we'll be posting it there. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight. Thank you all for your work, and congratulations once again for this very well-earned Washington State Book Award for Poetry. Good night.